What happens when the very person meant to heal minds becomes the patient? Dr. Harley Quinn was once Gotham's most promising psychiatrist, but today we know her as Harley Quinn. A cautionary tale of how emotional manipulation can shatter even the strongest intellects. How does a brilliant mind fall so completely? The answer lies deeper than madness itself. In the sterile halls of Arkham Asylum, Dr. Harley Quinn represented everything the psychiatric community aspired to be. A prodigy who graduated summa cum laude with a doctorate in psychology, she possessed an almost supernatural ability to connect with patients others had written off as hopeless. Her colleagues admired her fearless approach to the most dangerous minds in Gotham. But brilliance often comes with a price. Harleen's gift for empathy was also her greatest vulnerability. She could slip into the minds of her patients with such ease that the boundaries between doctor and subject began to blur. Her supervisor notes from this period reveal a pattern. She was becoming too invested, too emotionally involved with cases that demanded clinical detachment. The psychology behind this phenomenon is well documented. Experts call it countertransference, when a therapist unconsciously projects their own emotions onto a patient. For someone as empathetic as Harleen, this created a perfect storm. She wasn't just treating patients. She was absorbing their trauma, their pain, their twisted worldviews. Then came the assignment that would change everything. A new patient had arrived at Arkham, one whose reputation preceded him like a shadow. The Joker. Her colleagues warned her, begged her to refuse the case. But Harleen saw an opportunity that others missed, to crack the code of pure chaos itself. She approached that first session with scientific confidence, armed with years of training and an unshakable belief in her abilities. What she didn't realize was that she wasn't entering a therapy session. She was walking into a masterclass in psychological warfare. But there was something that nobody saw coming. The first sessions appeared routine. Harleen maintained professional distance while the Joker played his games, riddles, jokes, philosophical paradoxes designed to confuse and disorient. But something was happening beneath the surface, something that wouldn't become apparent until it was too late. The Joker wasn't trying to escape Arkham through violence or traditional manipulation. He was doing something far more sophisticated. He was rewriting the rules of reality itself, one conversation at a time. He understood that Harleen's greatest strength, her empathy, could become her greatest weakness if properly exploited. Neuroscience shows us that emotional manipulation literally rewires the brain. When someone consistently challenges our perception of reality while offering intermittent validation, it creates what psychologists call trauma bonding. The victim's brain begins to crave the very source of their confusion, desperately seeking approval from their manipulator. The turning point came during their 7th session. Harleen had prepared extensively, armed with new therapeutic techniques and a determination to break through the Joker's defenses. Instead, he told her something that shattered her worldview entirely, a truth about herself that she had buried so deep she had forgotten it existed. He revealed he knew about her father, about the nights she spent as a child listening to her parents fight, about how she became a psychiatrist not to help others, but to understand why the people who were supposed to love her could cause so much pain. In that moment, the roles reversed completely. She was no longer the doctor. She was the patient, and he was revealing truths she couldn't face. The psychological term for this is gasoline, when an abuser uses intimate knowledge against their victim to destabilize their sense of self. Harleen's carefully constructed professional identity began to crumble, and in its place, something new and dangerous began to emerge. And it was there that everything started to unravel. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Insanity, Evolution of the Villain. 3,500 characters. What followed wasn't a sudden break from reality. It was a methodical deconstruction of everything Harleen thought she knew about herself. The Joker didn't need violence or threats. He had something far more powerful: the ability to make her question her own sanity, while positioning himself as the only person who truly understood her. Each therapy session became a lesson in psychological manipulation. He would alternate between cruelty and kindness, creating an unpredictable pattern that kept Harlene's mind in constant turmoil. One day, he would attack her deepest insecurities. The next, he would praise her intelligence and beauty. This inconsistency is the foundation of trauma bonding. The victim never knows what to expect, so they desperately seek the abuser's approval. Harlene began to rationalize his behavior. "He's testing me," she told herself. "He's showing me who I really am beneath the facade." She started seeing his cruelty as honesty, his violence as authenticity. In her notes from this period, we can see her handwriting becoming more erratic, her clinical observations giving way to personal confessions. The transformation accelerated when the Joker began sharing his philosophy of chaos. He painted order as a lie, society as a prison, and sanity as the ultimate delusion. To Harlene, who had spent years trying to fix broken minds, this represented a radical freedom she had never considered. What if the patients weren't the ones who needed fixing? What if the system itself was the disease? Cognitive dissonance theory explains this perfectly. When our beliefs are challenged by someone we've come to trust, our minds will twist logic into pretzels to resolve the contradiction. Harlene's brain chose to preserve her relationship with the Joker rather than maintain her grip on reality. She began to see his worldview not as mental illness, but as a higher form of consciousness. The final stage of her transformation involved what psychologists call identification with the aggressor. Unable to maintain her role as his doctor, she began to adopt his mannerisms, his speech patterns, even his twisted sense of humor. But the true monster was still sleeping. The moment of total transgression came not with violence, but with a choice. During their final official session, the Joker presented Harlene with what he called the ultimate joke, a test that would prove whether she truly understood his philosophy or was still trapped in the prison of conventional morality. He told her about the electroshock therapy he was scheduled to receive the next day, a procedure that could potentially erase the very personality that had fascinated her for months. "They want to fix me, Doc," he said with that trademark grin. "Make me normal, boring, just another face in the crowd. Is that what you want?" This created the perfect psychological trap. Harlene faced a choice between her professional ethics and her emotional attachment. Save the man she had fallen for, or watch him be destroyed by the very system she represented. The manipulation was complete. He had made her see his preservation as an act of love, and his treatment as an act of violence. That night, Harlene Quinzel made her choice. She disabled the security systems, unlocked his cell, and helped him escape. But the true transgression wasn't the jailbreak. It was what she did next. She didn't just free him. She joined him. In that moment, Dr. Harlene Quinzel ceased to exist, and Harley Quinn was born. The psychology behind this transformation reveals something terrifying about human nature. Under the right circumstances, anyone can be broken down and rebuilt. Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, and psychological manipulation aren't signs of weakness. They're evidence of how sophisticated predators can exploit the very qualities that make us human: our need for connection, understanding, and love. Harley's transformation raises an uncomfortable question. If someone as intelligent and trained as Dr. Quinzel could fall so completely, what does that say about the rest of us? Are we all just one skilled manipulator away from losing ourselves entirely? And perhaps most disturbing of all, what if she's not wrong? What if the chaos she embraces is more honest than the order she abandoned? The brilliance of Harley Quinn's transformation lies not in its irrationality, but in its terrifying logic. When examined through the lens of modern psychology, every step of her journey follows predictable patterns that researchers have documented in cases of extreme, Emotional manipulation and abuse. Dr. Judith Lewis Herman's groundbreaking research on trauma bonding explains exactly how the Joker accomplished what seems impossible. He used a technique called intermittent reinforcement, alternating between punishment and reward in unpredictable patterns. This creates an addiction-like dependency where the victim becomes psychologically dependent on their abuser for emotional regulation. Neuroimaging studies show that victims of sustained psychological manipulation display brain activity similar to drug addicts when separated from their abuser. The dopamine pathways become hijacked, making the relationship feel simultaneously toxic and essential for survival. Harley's devotion to the Joker isn't madness. It's her brain's chemical response to months of calculated conditioning. But there's another layer to consider. Research by Dr. Mary Ainsworth on attachment styles reveals that individuals with certain childhood experiences are particularly vulnerable to this type of manipulation. Harley's background: growing up with an unstable father figure and developing hypervigilance around relationships created the perfect psychological profile for the Joker to exploit. The most chilling aspect is how this mirrors real-world cases of extreme manipulation. Cult leaders like Jim Jones and Charles Manson used identical techniques to transform educated, intelligent people into devoted followers. The pattern is always the same: isolation, reality distortion, intermittent reinforcement, and the gradual replacement of the victim's identity with one created by the abuser. What makes Harley's case unique is her professional background. She understood these techniques intellectually, yet still fell victim to them. This suggests something profoundly unsettling about human psychology. Knowledge alone isn't protection against skillful emotional manipulation. In fact, her expertise may have made her more vulnerable by giving her a false sense of security. Recent studies on intellectual humility support this theory. Experts in a field often develop blind spots, precisely because they overestimate their immunity to the very phenomena they study. Harley thought she could maintain clinical detachment while engaging with a master manipulator. She was wrong, and that error cost her everything. This wasn't madness. It was cold calculation. In the aftermath of her transformation, Harley Quinn became something unprecedented in Gotham's criminal landscape. Not just another victim of the Joker's manipulation, but a force of chaos that amplified his impact exponentially. Her psychological training, now twisted and weaponized, made her uniquely dangerous in ways that pure violence never could. The relationship between Harley and the Joker demonstrates the most toxic form of codependency imaginable. She validates his worldview while he provides her with purpose and identity. Together, they create a feedback loop of destruction that neither could achieve alone. This dynamic has influenced countless other fictional relationships, establishing a template for how intelligence can be corrupted and turned against itself. But Harley's story raises deeper questions about the nature of sanity itself. In recent years, mental health professionals have begun to question whether her actions can be entirely attributed to manipulation. Some argue that her transformation revealed authentic aspects of her personality that conventional society had suppressed. The chaotic freedom she embraces might represent a genuine rejection of restrictive social norms, rather than pure psychological damage. This interpretation aligns with emerging research on neurodiversity and the social construction of mental illness. What we label as madness might sometimes be alternative ways of processing reality that don't conform to societal expectations. Harley's case forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. What if some of what we call mental illness is actually a rational response to an irrational world? The lasting impact of her story extends beyond entertainment into real-world psychology and criminology. Harley Quinn has become a case study in how trauma, manipulation, and psychological expertise can combine in devastating ways. Her character has influenced how we understand and treat victims of psychological abuse. particularly those who later become perpetrators themselves. Perhaps most significantly, Harley represents the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of intellectual arrogance. She believed her training made her immune to manipulation, but her expertise actually made her a more valuable target. Her fall from grace serves as a reminder that understanding the mind doesn't guarantee mastery over it. The cycle continues because Harley's transformation isn't unique. It's a pattern that repeats whenever vulnerable individuals encounter skilled manipulators. In Gotham and in our own world, the line between healer and patient, between sanity and madness, remains frighteningly thin. But perhaps she won't be the last brilliant mind to cross it. Dr. Harley Quinn's transformation into us. Harley Quinn reveals a disturbing truth. The very qualities that make us human, empathy, trust, the need for connection, can be weaponized against us. Her story isn't just about one woman's fall from grace. It's a mirror reflecting our own vulnerabilities. In a world where manipulation masquerades as love, perhaps the real question isn't how she fell so far, but how any of us stay standing at all.